Because she sticks to the salient points, whereas when you talk, I want to stick a pencil in my eye and headbutt the table.
Welcome to a Decoding TV bonus episode. Today we're covering Slow Horses Season 5 on Apple TV. I'm David Chen. Joining me for this conversation is one of the world's most preeminent slow horseologists, in my opinion at least. She's at Joy of Napping Online. We just call her Joy here on the podcast. Joy, thanks for chatting with me today.
It's Joy by name, napping by nature.
Indeed. Well, not only is Joy a huge fan of napping, but she's also a huge fan of Slow Horses. She's read all the books, right? Many of the books?
Actually, a new one just came out, Clown Town. So I believe I've read the first 8, but I haven't read the 9th.
Yeah, and obviously we have seen all the episodes of the show. If you're listening to this, all episodes of Slow Horses Season 5 are now available. So what we are going to do in this conversation is we're going to talk very briefly about our overall thoughts on the show, and then we are going to dive into like super spoilery, detailed analysis of what happens this season. But let's start by talking about the premise of this season of the show. In Season 5 of Slow Horses, the Slow Horses are still reeling in the aftermath of Season 4, when a gunman broke into their office and killed one of their own.
Very, very bad. Very sad.
River is a mess, Louisa's taking mental health leave, and Shirley has become even more agitated and guarded. But that's exactly why Shirley is the first one to notice that someone is trying to kill Roddy Ho. Roddy is, of course, oblivious to the attempts on his life, but the rest of the Slow Horses realize something is truly wrong when they realize Roddy also seems to have landed a real human girlfriend. In the meantime, London is besieged by seemingly random terrorist attacks, a mass shooting in a neighborhood square, sabotage at a fuel refinery, and a bizarre attack that wipes out all the penguins at a zoo. Are the attempts on Roddy somehow linked to all of this? So that's what's going on this season of Slow Horses. Joy, why don't you share your overall thoughts on the season? What do you think of Season 5 of Slow Horses?
Well, this is a shout out to all the Slow Horses fans, but especially just in case JK Co, podcast listener, is tuning in. I love this season. I read the book, obviously, and have been waiting for the world to discover that this thing they think is a spy thriller about the legacy of River Cartwright and his grandfather who used to run the agency, and Jackson Lamb, and the ties of the Cold War to the present, has an actual Roddy Ho centered entire book. And the tone of this, book as a result is completely out of whack with the rest of the series, which is so melodramatic. But for me, it really works. And it gives some of our other players who aren't River a chance to shine. So whether that's Shirley, who has really leveled up through grief and rage, or JK Co, who's like coming out of the shadows and actually entering the chat, sometimes literally managing to say like 5 words. I really enjoy the ensemble nature and the total absurdity of this season. What about you?
I had a great time with this season. I mean, as you indicate in your overview there, it has become in many ways a deeply silly show. Like, I don't know that I can take the show particularly seriously anymore, right? I don't know that I can say...
Did you before?
Not really, right? But like, I mean, I really think last season, honestly, was almost as campy as this season in some ways, right? Like, but the show, I think, has become a very breezy watch that still has like really serious issues that it's trying to deal with: terrorism, destabilizing countries, and so forth. Like it uses those things, but at its core, it's kind of just a really fun hang. And a lot of the plot developments that happen in the show, in general, I would say not just this season, but also the last couple seasons, are quite silly, over the top, melodramatic, and bordering on camp. That's not necessarily said in a derogatory fashion. I'm just saying, like, it's a very silly show, but it's also very, very funny. I think I laugh louder while watching or laugh more while watching the show than most other shows in a given year. The humor is very dry. The one-liners are really biting and brilliant. So I have a great time watching the show.
The many ways in which people are scathing towards each other.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's just like all these like withering takedowns that they have of each other. And so it's a great time. It's a great time. Do I take it seriously? Not really. Do I think it's an important show? Not really.
I mean, I would argue you were never supposed to take it seriously.
Sure.
But that, I think that there are a couple like serious meta points that Mick Herron, the author of the Slough House series, really deeply believes. One is that who is deemed incompetent is often due to happenstance. Like actually everyone is incompetent who is running these incredibly powerful apparatuses.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very sins of the father series, in some cases, literally the father. But you know, all the things that the British Empire does in order to try to wrest control over or influence its former colonies or its subjects will come back to haunt it in transmogrified ways. And I think Slough House is very much like it's an attempt to contain a problem that can't really be contained.
Well, to that point, first of all, I think it's a great point about who is deemed incompetent. But also, I mean, related to that is the people who are deemed incompetent are often not incompetent in the way that you and I conceive of them. You know, they are often extremely skilled. Like Jackson Lamb, according to the show, one of the most talented detectives and problem solvers. You know, like he always just knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And so who is deemed incompetent?
He's not a detective. He's a spy. But yeah,
sure.
It's got a similar toolkit in some ways.
He is, people view him as incompetent and kind of a disgusting human being, but in fact, he's actually hyper competent and has a lot of loyalty to him. I do think that so I'm 100% aligned with you on the first point, like really well stated. The second point about British Empire and the sins of the father and the crimes of the past and so forth, I don't really know if I buy that the show is doing a great job. If the show is even trying to make that point, I don't know that it does a great job of make that point. Because the problem is that this, at the end of the day, the superseding priority of Slow Horses is to be a breezy spy entertainment, like a breezy spy thriller. You know, like that is what it's like. Imperative, its prime directive is, and therefore like I just think it's hard to take those other things too seriously is the problem with that, right? Is like
I guess
at the end of the day, like the pleasures of the show are in watching Jackson Lamb succeed to some degree. Like Jackson Lamb cannot like fail horrifically and the show continues, in my opinion.
I guess. I mean, I think what the main counterbalance to your argument is that this show's got a really high body count of people you actually like. You know, that woman who was in House of the Dragon. In the show, her name is Sydney Baker.
Olivia Cook, I think you're thinking of.
Axed partway through season 1, when you think she's going to be River's love interest, Min Harper, who's Louisa's love interest, gets killed.
Well, hey, let's not. We haven't gotten to spoilers yet, but we're about to. So
those are spoilers from past seasons.
Yeah, I know, but anyway, it's okay. I don't know if I warned people about that, so I don't know if people are watching this. Yeah.
Suffice it to say, it's actually a very grim show. It's a very grim set of novels. And I've read actually a lot of the Mick Herron things that are set in this universe, but not technically Slough House. So there are other parts of the Spyverse besides Slough House. And one of the novels is so dark. I was deeply uncomfortable after reading it. And so I think that he has a pretty grim outlook on humanity.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense.
It not just a breezy spy thriller.
I think that all makes sense, but I don't think that necessarily translates into the show.
Okay,
I don't think that's like, I don't think I get it as part of the show. It's like super dark, but that's me though, and certainly not this season, in my opinion. But
I would say the show is more grim and crappy. Like Jackson Lamb's overcoat looks so disgusting, and the Slough House itself is like under renovation, quote unquote, from the fatal shootings that were there a few months ago, and it looks awful and depressing. They make the neighborhood of Barbican look really soulless, as well, just giant chunks of concrete in the middle of London. And I think the books maybe convey more danger, that there's actual danger as well.
Yeah, fair. Well, let's talk about what actually happens this season. So from this point forward, we are spoilers for
All
every single
spoilers,
episode of
yes.
Slow Horses that has ever been made. So as usual with Slow Horses, all these plot threads converge into a single plot thread. The culprits, it turns out, are a group of Libyans who are trying to get revenge on Britain for their prior actions in Libya using an old MI5 playbook called the Destabilization Strategy for Regime Change. The first step is to compromise an agent, and because the Libyans are really smart, they aim straight for the horrendously unreliable folks at Slough House, and in particular Roddy Ho. The other steps of the strategy are attack the village, disrupt the transport, seize the media, assassinate a populist leader, blind the enemy, attack a place of worship, and then there's an additional step afterwards that we'll talk about as well. So the Slow Horses are central to this plot, and we'll talk about like some of those steps and kind of what we thought about them. But the Slow Horses are central to this plot, but as usual, it's a mixed bag. Sure, Shirley and Jackson Lamb managed to save Roddy Ho from multiple attempts on his life. Shirley and Standish thwart the assassination of Zafar Jaffray, and Shirley, River, and Co. pull this off a second time in the season climax. But nothing can really overcome that Roddy Ho let a honeypot plant malware in MI5 systems, or that River and Co. kind of get the opposition candidate killed. The only slight comfort is that no other part of MI5 seems any more competent, particularly Claude Whelan. River finally manages to do something halfway decent and stop the final Libyan from killing Claude. He's hoping Claude will be grateful enough that he can get a promotion back into the regular services, but Jackson manages to end Claude's career and blackmail him into retirement. The new first desk is finally Diana Taverner, and she's willing to deal with Jackson, but not to take River Cartwright. That is a bridge too far. So that's like the overall arc of the season. They stop the Libyans. Claude Whelan is out. River Cartwright's back in at Slow Horses, despite temporary hope that he would get out.
They stopped the Libyans, but they also managed to do the Libyans' work on accident.
That's right.
Like the Libyans fail because Shirley stops the one assassination attempt, but yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, that's the biggest shocking moment of the season. Possibly one of the most shocking plot developments of the year, right? Which is that...
Of the year? Like of all television?
Yeah, in my opinion. Like,
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known this was happening and I've been like waiting for people to get to the paint can. So like, I think I can't, like, I don't have good feel for like how this was coming in fresh. How was it for you?
I mean, it was incredible. I mean, so first of all, the idea is that they believe the Libyans are going to be assassinating one of the two leaders, a populist leader. And so they assume it's going to be Gimbal, because Gimbal is kind of a ultra right-wing fringe-esque figure, although maybe more mainstream now because of the world politics and such. And so River and Co. go to stop Gimbal from being assassinated, and inadvertently end up accidentally killing him. And it's done in a very Final Destination-esque way, where Co is watching from above, and then he slowly lowers himself onto the ground, and in the process of doing so, drops a paint can onto Gimbal's head, and he dies. Meanwhile, the Libyans are actually trying to assassinate the other guy, the center-left candidate Zafar Jaffray. Shirley is successfully able to stop that from happening. But because somebody got assassinated anyway, the Libyans' plan is still moving apace. It is... I think it's probably like one of the most directly horrifying and world-altering things that the Slow Horses have directly done in the show. Right? Like,
absolutely.
It's a thing where like, oh, they... And by the way, I think the show doesn't really... in my estimation, the show does not do a good job of getting into what the actual aftermath of something like that would be.
Right.
I think there would be like literal riots in the streets.
Right.
Stuff like that would happen, right? Or outrage and other things, it barely covers the aftermath of it at all, from my perspective.
Well, because it's all happening in real time.
Yeah.
The show covers maybe like less than a day span.
Yeah.
Maybe a few days, but yeah, anyway.
So it's a shocking moment. It's done well. Like visually, it's conveyed in a way that you really understand how it happened accidentally. And then River's confession afterwards to Jackson Lamb went about as well as I think we all expected it to.
You have never once taken responsibility for your litany of fuck-ups. Why are you starting now?
So I love how shocking it is. I love how surprising it is. It comes out of nowhere. I wish we had dealt a little bit more with the aftermath of this and like what does it mean that they murdered this guy? We never really find out, and that's the only downside of it.
They
But
didn't murder him. It was an accident, okay?
Sure.
It was an accident where they fled the scene.
They killed him, fled the scene, and didn't confess to what happened. So I guess that's not murder. Maybe it's technically manslaughter. But whatever the case is,
Yeah.
it was something
I don't
horrible.
even know if it's manslaughter, but it's an extreme day of mistakes were made. Like,
yeah.
I think in season 4, without spoilers too much, we saw Emma Flight's first day at work, and it is the worst day at work that anybody could possibly have, and I feel like this might have been the worst day that River could possibly have. He has been spiraling out. He's becoming less and less competent. He's more and more delusional. He's like, Jackson, you got to put me in because I'm really good. So like, let's just cut the bullshit. And Jackson's like, you're an extreme mess. Please go home.
Right. River has been mostly useless this season. He does have a couple moments of competence in literally the last episode.
Yeah, but he
otherwise
really
has contributed almost nothing of value this season.
And has really sucked, so he's actually like missed the stakeout across the street of the girlfriend's address, etc. And I think this is a real like River is hitting bottom moment where he's like, oh my God, they're going to fire me. They're finally going to have to fire me. Like, I am going to get exiled in shame from the agency that my grandfather built. And this is all very, 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 very bad. And like his feeble attempts to cope with it, I think are really, really hilarious. And so even though River isn't the main character doing heroic things, I find that he does have an arc in this season, which I appreciate.
I think that is one of the through lines of the show, though, which is that, and just to be clear, what happens is Jackson knows about the crime. I guess you could say technically what Jackson does is help to cover it up. Right?
Absolutely.
And
so he's like, hell no, I'm not going to tell anyone about this.
Right. And that's one of the big through lines of the show is that you can do horrible things and it will never come to light because depending on the situation, if making it come to light makes your superiors look bad, right? That's something that happens.
Or would somehow be worse. Like, I think no
right.
one would believe that MI5 agents happen to be there and happen to drop the paint can and it's an accident. Like, the conspiracy theories would go crazy, I think.
Yes. So, but that is definitely a through line of the show, is like, is the extent to which your crimes will be not necessarily forgiven, but hidden. In fact, that is basically the whole reason that Slow Horses as a group exists, right? Is because these are people who they don't want to fire because they need to control them.
Hidden, but we'll pay you back with interest.
Yes. Well, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm really curious. I'm actually surprised at how little they dealt with the death of Gimbal this season. Like, I'm curious if it's going to come back in a future season in any way, because it is a rather staggering. It is a thing that like can alter the course of world events, right?
I just want you to understand. I mean, so you're saying like, how was it received by the public? How was it? And maybe not. But I will say that in general, the show is very interested in and the books, in things that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, coming back.
Yeah, right.
That's why it feels like so much like a soap opera.
Yeah. Okay.
May I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Who is your MVP this season?
Well, I think honestly, it's probably Roddy Ho, and then secondarily the girl that he's dating.
Oh, Tara the Libyan.
I think that we've seen many shows in the past. I'm just going to list a couple. The West Wing, Orange is the New Black, where it starts by centering a white character. It's like, hey, this is the way the audience is going to get into this. And then like subsequent seasons, the white character becomes completely sidelined. And it's all the rest of the rest of the cast that like comes to the forefront, and I think that's the case here, where River Cartwright is the protagonist of season 1 of Slow Horses, but I don't know that
definitely
Roddy Ho,
season 2 as well.
Yeah, I don't know that Roddy Ho is the protagonist this season, but like River Cartwright is definitely sidelined. He's not the main character of the season. I would say, you know, and it's interesting to watch the show try to navigate that because Roddy Ho, I don't think can be the main character because he's too silly. I guess the attention shifted more to Jackson and maybe a little bit to Shirley this season. Right?
I think it's a Roddy plus Jackson 1-2 punch a lot of the time. In which Roddy, because he's so delusional, completely misreads his relationship to Jackson Lamb. And Jackson is curious about what's going on and why someone's trying to kill one of his agents. And on some level, you know, forcing Claude Whelan out at the end of the season, Jackson does want what's best for the MI5 from his perspective. So if Roddy's a means to that, then Jackson will break into Roddy's flat and try to protect him, break into the girlfriend's flat, you know, and actually like door her. You know, there's that moment where she's running and he pops open the car door. He stops her from fleeing the embassy. You know, like Jackson's got a lot to do, actually.
Yeah. And I think the stuff he does is kind of he puts in just enough effort to accomplish the mission and no more. And that's kind of classic Jackson. So if you like Jackson Lamb, this is a very good Jackson Lamb heavy season.
So I have to say, in the books and in the show, Roddy is so incredibly unlikable that well, he's like a version of a guy, you know, I think for most of us. Repugnant, always thinks he's right, like the ultimate real life reply guy. And Mick Herron, when he was writing the books, was really shocked that this character actually grew a fandom because he was written to be so awful.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I think season 5/book 5 is fan service for all those people that can't help themselves but really enjoy Roddy for some reason. And I think what it is, at least for me, when I was reading the book and realizing like, oh my God, he's been like, he's not only been trapped by somebody who pretended to be his girlfriend, but he is going to be hauled into MI5's like torture interrogation cells, and they're going to go to work on him. And Roddy obviously has like a fragility around the masculinity, and that's why he like has such a big personality, right? And I was nervous for him, and then I was so delighted and shocked that it turns out that Roddy Ho is actually unbreakable because his delusion is so complete. And there's something almost kind of beautiful about it in an innocent sort of way. I think in the show, he's just a little bit more obnoxious about it, but you really watch him doing the mental gymnastics to make his narrative fit the events that he is being told about. And no matter how painful it is that people, you know, the things people say to him, it just feels like he cannot actually register pain. So I love it. Probably took a shift of this size for us to get this exploration of Roddy. And I agree he can't be the main character all the time, but I really appreciate the spotlight turning to him.
I agree, and it's a great performance by
Christopher
the actor
Chung.
who plays Christopher Chung. Does a wonderful job. And also, to be fair to Roddy, the show makes it out like the way the show is cut together this season. It's done to make you actually believe that Roddy Ho's story is plausible. It's done to make you believe that Roddy Ho actually did fall in love with this woman, that the woman is in love with him, and that she was coerced into helping these terroristic forces. But in fact, it's kind of like one of those things where, you know, she took the job and then she fell in love during the process of the job, you know, and
she saw that light up neon sword and she's like, this is the man for me.
Yeah, indeed. Now, I think because she won't kiss him in the cab. She like immediately texts something about it as she's leaving. I don't know. I think she does kiss him. She's not going to have sex with him. That's the thing that happens.
She kind of turns away. No, I don't think she really kisses him.
Fair enough. You've seen this season more times than me. So, but regardless, she's saving herself because she wants to be special. But in fact, you know, and then now we now learn, like by the end of the series, that it's because she actually is sympathetic to the Libyans, which, you know, I don't think it's the biggest twist to predict, but I did predict it. It wasn't like something that caught me by surprise. But yes, it's a great Roddy Ho season, and it's cool that the show is the ensemble of the show is strong enough that it can actually sustain that for an entire season. So,
and shout out to Christopher Chung's dance moves in the opening of the season. You know, like he has said in interviews, it was really important to him that Roddy Ho actually dance well, because the idea would be that Roddy would have seen this on YouTube. Like he would dance a very specific way, which is stuff he would have seen online. He like memorized. And that felt actually very true, I think. It turns out also Roddy Ho's a huge movie fan. Did you notice how many movie references are
I did notice he dropped a lot of movie references, and they were all delightful.
Did you get them? I actually wrote them all down.
Yeah, let's talk about them.
So first of all, he refers to him and Tara as like twins, like the sons of Tatooine, which I thought was incredible. And it goes like straight over Jackson Lamb's head, and he's like, "You got tattoos?" Okay.
So you got that one. You got that one. Right?
I got that one. This one I didn't get. He says, I believe while being interrogated, have you seen Tom Cruise in Magnolia? That taught me a lot about women.
Right.
I have seen Magnolia, but it's been like 20 years, I think. Like what? I don't even remember this at all.
It's an incredible reference. Okay. It's an incredible reference. So Magnolia is a 1999 film by Paul Thomas Anderson. And it is one of Tom Cruise's boldest performances. Okay, because we now think of Tom Cruise as the Mission Impossible guy. He's the Mission Impossible guy. He's the action guy. He's been making Mission Impossible movies for like decades. And so we think of him as he's the kind of action star, right? But back in 1999, Tom Cruise was still taking big chances.
Like he did Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, Eyes Wide Shut. He did, he was making movies like earlier on in his career, before he became all Mission Impossible all the time, he was trying to be a well-respected dramatic actor. Eyes Wide Shut, Born on the 4th of July, Days of Thunder, Few Good Men. He had a very diverse filmography. And one of the movies that he appeared in was Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, which is really quite remarkable because at the time, Paul Thomas Anderson was not nearly as well known as he is today. He had made Boogie Nights, which is incredible. And then they had gotten Tom Cruise. And I became obsessed with Magnolia. Like I watched that movie, I'm going to say 10 times.
I don't remember anything about it except it's got that Amy Mann song, One.
Right. And I think the movie is overall brilliant. In fact, I mean, it really spoke to who I was at the time. I think I was in my 20s when that came out, or in my teens or whatever.
So I'm sensing that you and Roddy Ho have some things in common.
Absolutely. But I became obsessed with it. I literally bought the script of Magnolia. Like I had never done that before. And I bought the script and I read the foreword to it. And I read all the details about the making of the movie. I watched all the special features of the making, I was obsessed with the movie because essentially Magnolia is about all these people's lives in Los Angeles, in the San Fernando Valley, and how they all kind of intersect in weird ways, but they all like have these themes that run through them. And it's all a beautiful tapestry, like a magnolia flower. And Tom Cruise plays a character named Frank T.J. Mackey. The closest equivalent I think we have to him today would be an Andrew Tate style character. So imagine Andrew Tate, but in the era when you needed to use video cassette tapes to spread your propaganda instead of YouTube, right? I mean,
Andrew Tate is accused of some extremely horrible crimes against women. Yes,
that's true. So it's not that far, but it's
so
less.
So when Roddy Ho says, "I learned a lot about women from Tom Cruise in Magnolia," what does he mean?
He's talking about the ideology of when I say like Andrew Tate, I don't mean that Frank T.J. Mackey has been convicted of sex trafficking. I mean that he has the same ideology as Frank T.J. Mackey,
which is that men are in charge,
or as Andrew Tate, which is that men
women
should be
are
in charge.
Weak.
Yeah, I think I'm about to say well, I think the words you are introduced to him are like respect the male genitalia and tame the female genitalia. I'm not going to say the words, but they both begin with C. And like those are the words that he like. Those are the words you start that Frank T.J. Mackey starts with. And he's all about how do you psychologically manipulate women in order to do your sexual bidding, basically.
Great.
And he's meant to be a reprehensible
Yeah,
character.
no, I think in general, I got all that from context. So, okay.
Yeah. But for Roddy to say it taught me a lot about women. I mean, you do find out during the course of Magnolia that actually, hey, Frank T.J. Mackey is like a profoundly damaged human being, and that's why he is the way he is, and so you do have like some sympathy, and it's a great performance by Tom Cruise. But for him to say Magnolia taught me a lot about women, that's very horrifying. So yeah.
So next he says, I mean, really building on what you're saying about Frank T.J. Mackey, this is what happens when a honey trapper gets a taste of honey. It was in that Cindy Crawford flick, I think. She only did a couple of them. He trails off and is interrupted. I know you know a lot about movies, but do you know which Cindy Crawford flick she is a honey trapper who gets a taste of honey?
I am not sure, but I think it is the Andrew Sipes movie Fair Game that he's referring to there. I'm not sure though. I never saw Fair Game, but that was
I don't think anyone did.
That was like Cindy Crawford's big movie thing, where she was in this movie called Fair Game, with William Baldwin.
What I find so interesting is that Roddy Ho seems to like entirely have ingested content at a very certain time frame and then not watched anything in the last 20 years.
Right. That movie came out in 1995. Cindy Crawford only was in a handful of movies. So, I think that's the one that comes closest to what she's talking about. So,
okay. Next, Roddy says to Tara on the phone, I will find you no matter where you go. And I mean that in the romantic sense, like Daniel Day-Lewis in The Last of the Mohicans, and not Ricardo Montalban in The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, I mean, wonderful references. Last of the Mohicans, obviously a beautiful movie. But Ricardo Montalban, the idea is that he plays Khan in Wrath of Khan. And he and Captain Kirk are nemesis and are hunting each other, and so it's a very like negative it's a negative relationship that Ricardo Montalban has with William Kirk in Wrath of Khan. So.
It really does feel though like he hasn't seen anything from the 21st century, which I just think is a choice, and it's a hilarious and wonderful choice.
Well, he was watching movies when movies peaked as an art form, so and that's in the 90s, and that's all that matters.
I can imagine him actually surrounded by these like original VHS things, and just kind of watching them over and over again. Anyway, great work this season by Roddy Ho. I have an MVP, and it's actually not Roddy Ho this season.
Oh, who is it?
My stealth MVP is Shirley. I think my heart really breaks for Shirley.
Mm-hmm.
She had this friendship team up thing with Marcus, and he got killed, and she kind of knows she could have stopped it. Mm-hmm. She's an addict with very low self-esteem. I'm sure she feels a lot of survivor's guilt, literally. She had to be restrained from killing the guy who killed Marcus. Do you remember that? At the end of season 4,
that's right.
And then Ko just goes ahead and kills the guy anyway.
Yeah. Because he wanted to take that on himself, Joy. He didn't want her to experience that.
Yeah, you kind of are not 100% sure what Ko's like deal is inside morally and how he's wired. But as a result, Shirley this season is the person who stops Roddy from getting run over in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who tries to convince everybody that actually something's wrong. And even Jackson Lamb is like, well, so if somebody wanted to kill Roddy Ho, like, who cares? It's a day ending in Y. Nothing's new.
Right.
She really works on everybody about that. She's the one who foils the assassination attempt on Zafar Jaffrey. She shows up at the shootout at the end. I just feel in general, her instincts are so good this season.
Yeah.
And there's one shot of her in the elevator going up to that kind of rooftop restaurant where they are all meeting early in the season, where it's just quiet and you just see the look on her face. And I just think this actor is doing so much with so little. Mostly it's action stuff, right? But she is, you sense like her aching loneliness and sadness. And I just, I was so taken with her performance, especially I've watched the season twice. I think that
Amy Fionn Edwards, by the way, is named the actor. But yeah,
this character in in the books, obviously, there's just more space for each person to have. What they do is what's called close third person. So it's third person, but you're kind of hearing the person's thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And there is so much will she or won't she about deciding to do drugs again,
Mm-hmm.
and an internal dialogue she's sort of having with Marcus and what would Marcus want. And it's just like really, really beautiful, actually, like about how addiction and grief are so hard when they go together. And so anyway, I loved her in this. And on second watch, it was like not as obvious on the first watch. I was like, God, she's doing the most. Like maybe she didn't stop that guy who came in to assassinate Roddy Ho completely, but she did stab him in the thigh with a hypodermic needle and then use a skateboard to hit that into his thigh. I mean, that was pretty badass considering the guy's got like a foot on her and probably 50 pounds.
Yeah. Well, Joy, so first of all, I think that's great. I agree. It's a rich performance. I don't feel like we got to spend that much time with Shirley this season, unfortunately.
I know, yeah.
And so I didn't really see some of the stuff that you talked about there. It's all hinted at, but it's not really in the text, in my opinion. That said, it does bring us to the next point, which is what are some of the big differences, in your opinion, between the book and this season of the show?
There are three really big differences. I would say every season of the show has tracked pretty closely to the book. There have been some minor changes or moving this from this location to another for convenience. Partly it's also to fit the frame of having 6 episodes where you want each one to have a little hook at the end. But they made a very big choice to make the terrorist cell quite different. So in the show, it's Libyans with honestly what seems like a pretty legitimate set of grievances from my perspective. In the book, they are North Koreans. And they are North Koreans who have been sleeper celled into England on like student visas or just kind of hanging out quietly, living their lives for quite a while. But they are actually agents of the North Korean government. And that's quite different than being a separatist group, right?
Yeah.
And the idea in the book, which I think is hilarious, is that the terrorists are themselves also kind of like another Slough house. They're like not incredibly competent. They kind of do some things well and kind of don't. The person who falls in love with Roddy Ho, or the person who Roddy Ho thinks he's dating, is named Kim instead of Tara. She's way more ambivalent about the whole thing. There's a lot more, dynamics between the group. But there's something a little bit awkward. The North Koreans have intercepted this playbook, the destabilization strategy. They have taken it at face value to be literal. And there is something a little bit awkward about how they implement it that's meant to be, if you've ever been in another country or been trying to learn another language, you kind of miss some of the idioms and the texture. It's kind of like that. And so they do it in a horrifying way, but also that's where the penguins feel right, because it's like they decide to attack something, but they pick something so absurd and weird. And so there's like a lost in translation feeling in how literally they are carrying out the destabilization strategy. And all of them are believers. They all want to do it for the greater glory of the motherland, but they also are not getting a lot of information from their handlers about what to do. So they're kind of making it up as they go along. And there's a fumbling quality to them that is completely missing from the show, because in the show, these people are super amazing and super competent.
Hyper competent in the show, right? So you definitely lose that aspect of it. Do you feel like the show suffers as a result?
Well, I think it's a question of do you appreciate having a real enemy you're terrified of versus a slightly slapstick enemy that is actually capable of inflicting the same levels of violence and awfulness?
I do think hearing you talk about it, it makes some things line up more tonally this season, right? So the penguins being exploded, that's an inherently silly thing, I think. The paint can smashing the guy's head, right? If then also the North Koreans were kind of fumbling around, that would kind of feel like a more cohesive thing. Whereas it's sad, upsetting Libyans having their homeland violated, and then now they're blowing up penguins, right? Like, it's like, okay, that, I guess that works, right? That's kind of how I feel about
exactly,
it.
Exactly.
But it sounds like in the book, it would have been much more like, oh, this is all kind
you can see why they ended up there. The second big change is they changed the location to London. So actually in the Midlands is where all this occurs, middle of the country, a little bit more like heart of England, kind of symbolically. So when they attack the village, they literally attack a village. So
right.
Picture that village you've seen.
Step one of the destabilization strategy was attack the village.
Step two, because step one is compromise an agent. But yeah.
Oh, that's right. Step two is attack the village. So in the show, it's there is a mass shooting event in like an apartment complex, right?
It's kind of like a village square-ish because it's got like, some services there. But yeah, it's in the middle of the city.
It's literally a village, you're saying.
It is literally a village.
Yeah.
And okay, fine, you move it from one place to the other. What's the difference? I think the difference is it feels like an attack on such a non-strategic target.
Mm-hmm.
Just a random place in the heart of the semi-rural England.
Yeah.
That it feels everyone feels very vulnerable after that. Mm-hmm. And so then at the end, when they attack the place of worship and they go back to the same location to try to shoot up the memorial service, it is so much more horrifying. So this is part of the second difference. They actually barricade the doors of the church so nobody can get out. So all these innocent people are inside.
Yeah.
In the show, they really reduce the stakes by letting, having the slow horses show up and getting all the sort of bystander type people out.
Well, in the show, the terrorists, I believe, say, "Don't worry, we'll kill them all later," and then they just never get to it. I believe is kind of what happens in the show.
Well, it doesn't make any sense because they've all left the premises.
Oh,
and
don't
worry.
We're gonna get to we'll shoot them all later. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So
at that point, they're really running on fumes, the terror cell, and they're we'll do what we can do. We'll do whatever scope we have time for. Yeah. So I don't love that they changed it, but I think they did it a little bit to make it more kind of all feel like an attack on London. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So then,
and London looks spectacular in the show. Like it really does feel like they filmed it. Maybe they CG'd it. I don't know how they did it, but it really does look like they filmed in and around London. And I do think it's a core part of the character of the show. So I understand why they made that change.
Yeah, I could see that. And then the third change is they basically excise this ending where the whole reason that this destabilization strategy ever got leaked for North Korea to pick up on it is that Claude Whelan in a prior job had decided to declassify / attempt to seed, out in the world, some shitty leftover MI5 stuff in order to try to distract and confuse the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is, again, the sins of the father thing. It's not in the show, it's only in the book, but it is actually directly Claude Whelan's fault that the North Koreans picked this up, didn't understand it was being left for them to be picked up, and then took it super literally and decided to then do it. So it makes a lot more sense that Claude Whelan should be fired.
Yeah, I'm really confused why they left that part out of the show. I guess they felt like it would be too much work to seed that in, or they changed so much with the North Korean subplot. Because I will say one of my, I don't know if complaint is the right word, but it does feel like Jackson Lamb is able to very quickly get rid of Claude Whelan, who, by the way, the only thing we know about Claude Whelan is he knows how to cling to power.
Yeah,
And so the idea that Claude Whelan would be like, okay, you got me. I guess I gotta resign now. I just don't really buy that would go that easily.
That's such an interesting point you made, David.
Yeah. I think what you're implying is maybe it's not going to be that easy, but we'll see.
We'll see. I think, but the other thing that makes the destabilization strategy awkward is it was written a really long time ago, like decades ago. And so that's another reason for the awkwardness is they did it literally, but not all of this would make sense today. So I think, I don't know, is it elegant? No. Is it all still very slapstick? Absolutely. But, for me, it works because like the paint can, that gets set in motion by the Rube Goldberg machine. All of this is like the Rube Goldberg machine of like you start one thing and you think it's going to go a certain place, but actually it ricochets off this other thing. And then it, like that is the point, is how random are the consequences of our actions.
Any other changes you think are worth mentioning from this season of television to the book?
I feel like they otherwise really got it. I mean, they have changed some names of people and, locations and stuff. But I think really, and actually, interestingly, I'm 99% sure that whole thing where they're all trapped in the office and then Jackson Lamb tells the story about the Stasi is not in the book. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But what I love about the writers of the show, the work they're doing, is that even when they don't technically stick to the same mechanics, which they don't need to, they really manage to capture the tone of the book. Like they give us this incredible phrase, make London Lunderful again. Which is so perfectly cringe.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
And so I feel like the spirit of the writing is still like translated to the show, even when the mechanics aren't necessarily.
Yeah. Totally.
If you want to get me a Make London Lunderful Again shirt for Christmas, I will wear it.
Yeah. I do think it's, you mentioned that Stasi torture scene. I do think it's worth mentioning very briefly the final shot of the whole show, which is, so Jackson Lamb has blackmailed Claude Whelan out of being in First Desk. Diana Taverner has ascended. And
she's finally for real the First Desk.
And it's all extremely convenient.
Girl boss, gatekeep, gaslight.
We're gonna return everything to basically the status quo with River Cartwright still at Slow Horses. Like, don't worry, nothing's changing. And then Jackson Lamb removes his sock, and you see that there are like these horrifying burn marks or
something
torture marks on his feet. And you asked me like, what was my interpretation of that? Earlier in the season, Jackson Lamb told a story of a guy being tortured and his pregnant wife being killed, and then he said, "Oh, I just made that up." And I was like, "Are we supposed to think that he was that guy? He was the guy that was tortured in some way?" That was the vague feeling I was left with. Joy, what's your sense of what's going on here?
I really wasn't sure. I actually Googled diabetic neuropathy afterwards to see if that, because often it can lead to damage to your feet. To see if maybe that's what that looked like. I don't think so. It's obviously like a sign of his physical decay. I'll say that. I think you're supposed to ask the question that you just asked.
Yeah.
But also, book Jackson Lamb versus show Jackson Lamb. Book Jackson Lamb is a much more mysterious and magical creature. Like sometimes he'll be very light on his feet. Show Jackson Lamb is never light on his feet. Or he'll just whip something out from a pocket that you have no idea how he did it, or, kind of this, again, like sleight of hand type character. But he is also falling apart physically very rapidly. And so I am very unhappy to see this. I do not want any more signs of Jackson Lamb's mortality because he will live forever in my heart. And yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. It feels like it's got to be a prelude to something.
Yeah. Well, I want to elaborate a little bit on the point I made earlier about. I feel like sometimes the subject matter of the show is at odds with the pleasures and nature of the show, right? The pleasures and the nature of the show is, hey, we're watching Jackson Lamb win, right? Ultimately, you're watching these people who are underdogs and no one thinks they can do anything, and they do something, right? That's what we want to see in the show. But in this case, it's like when I hear about the Libyans talk about what the UK did to them, I'm like extremely sympathetic to their cause, right? But because of the structure of the show, that they can't win, basically. And I'm not saying like the terrorists should win or anything like that, but I'm just saying that I don't think that the show really has the capacity to be able to seriously reckon with those things, because fundamentally, at the end of the day, we want to see the quote unquote good guys win. and the show is like oriented in that way. Now you disagree, that you think that's nonsensical. Go ahead.
No, I don't think it's nonsensical. I just the show has a deep melancholy for me. That everything has a cost. That Jackson Lamb is often sitting there like weighing like the two evils he has to like think between. The one that got him retired and got him sent to Slough House, which I guess he created, but like is he had to kill his mentor. And he found out his mentor was a double agent, the actual head of MI5.
Right.
Like, that's fucking awful, and there's just so much moral decay at the heart of everything. I just don't think it's as maybe there's a breezy way to watch this.
Yeah, well, I would
where
argue
you
this
don't
season,
tangle with that,
yeah,
But
I mean, I think you're right that that's definitely more present in previous seasons, like the specter of the past and how
the,
they do psychic damage, how it does psychic damage to us. Like, I think that's definitely present in like past seasons. This season, I didn't feel that much the case,
yeah,
So
that's fair. That's fair.
right,
This one is
yeah.
more of a romp than any other.
Yeah, it's more of a, hey, the terrorists wanted to do something bad and they're evil and we beat them. That's kind of like the ultimate.
Actually, when Diana outlines the demands of the Libyans, Jackson Lamb's like, well, I can't really blame them. He's like, I guess you're going to have to pay that money because, A, you're fucked, and B, I get it.
Right.
I think, yeah. But, in a prior season.
That's the full extent of it. That's the full extent of like the reckoning with the crimes of, the British Empire,
Okay. Let's not like blame Slow Horses for a thing that I just think it's just one season of it when Lamb finally breaks after decades of holding his tongue and yells at Catherine Standish that Charles' partner, her boss, who she idolized, was actually using her because she was an alcoholic and he was taking advantage of her weakness and he had actually no respect for her. I cried. Like, that was so hard. And so I don't know. I don't think it's as light and breezy as a Bourne Ultimatum,
Yeah,
but that's just me.
I wonder if like I'm just misreading the text or the show as I often do.
I don't think anyone can misread it.
Or if it's that you like bring a lot of what it sounds like the heaviness and depth of the books with you when you're watching the show. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
the
I wonder
first
if that's
time I hadn't actually read the books at the time that I saw that and had that reaction. So, well, I'll be so interested to see next season's already done.
Yes. That's so amazing that they show completed scenes, like color, sound, dialogue from the next season at the end of this season. It's wonderful.
I think they do a great job of teasing it without really giving away any plot.
Yes.
The plot of the next one is a doozy. And I don't want to say anything more than that. But I'll be also curious to see if Louisa returns because they wrote Louisa out of this season.
Yeah.
Early on, she takes a mental health break. That does not happen in the book.
Yeah.
So she's along for some of these different, awful adventures. So I assume that's more due to the actors' filming availability. I think she's gotten some great opportunities.
Rosalind Eleazar plays Louisa, and she just leaves abruptly at the beginning of the season. So maybe she's unavailable, so they wrote her off, and then they'll bring her back next season. Who knows?
I just want to shout out one other little detail about this show before we wrap up. I think the episode titles are really great. And there's something about them that they could actually almost all work for any episode.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very, very clever. They're thematically right, but they also sort of like are strangely quite flexible. So the one I particularly noticed was, I think it's episode 5 is called Circus. And it's where it's partly set at Piccadilly Circus, where they drop Tara off and she evades detection very, very easily, by the way. Again, MI5, not that competent even at the top. But so it is a circus. It's Piccadilly Circus. And then the third thing that came to mind is the circus is what they call MI5 in the John Le Carre books. And very famously, Gary Oldman plays one of the John Smiley in
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Iconic character that clearly then inspires, that all of the John le Carré clearly inspires Nick Herron. So it's always been incredible casting that Gary Oldman is actually Jackson Lamb. He's like what could have happened to Smiley. Did I call him John Smiley? I think it's George Smiley.
That's George Smiley. That's right.
As he, wanders into a lifetime of drinking and sleeping on couches wrapped in plastic.
I do agree that a lot of the titles this season can have double meanings or triple
meanings. Yeah.
The episode titles, by the way, are Bad Dates, Incommunicado, Tall Tales, Missiles, Circus, and Scars. So it's like, in fact, I think pretty much all of them have.
I think literally all the. It's fascinating. You could actually take like 5 seasons of 6 episodes, so that's 30, and probably like actually resort them any number of ways and have it work.
Yeah, indeed. All right. I think that's going to bring us to the end of our conversation about Slow Horses Season 5. Joy, it's been wonderful to watch this show with you. I had a great time watching the show, great time talking with you about it, and appreciate you sharing your knowledge about the books with us here at Decoding TV.
It is such a pleasure. I look forward to this every time the show comes out. I'm waiting with bated breath each week as people are reacting to the latest developments. And particularly, I feel a great sigh of relief now that everyone knows about Paint Can.
Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.